Okay, so has there ever been a time where somebody out there just clicks with you? You get along with them perfectly, you're not sure why? Or has there ever been a time where you just didn't like someone, but you weren't sure why? Are you picking up on energies from people that make you like or dislike them? Is this a thing? Well, let's take a look at that today in this episode.
Welcome to High Strangeness, where we ask questions and explore all that is strange and unexpected in our reality.
Welcome to High Strangeness. I'm Tony, and this is a place where we talk about all things strange and unexpected in our reality. Today, we're going to discuss something that is, well, just different. And I'm excited because I've got with me today Ron Mason, who's a regular voice on High Strangeness. Ron, how are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing good. Enjoying the weather. It's
Yeah, it's starting to get warm, huh?
well, yeah. It's just nice not to have to wear three layers. It's been dry. We had a couple of rainstorms. Uh, I'm looking forward to, well, the first part of the spring. Not so much the middle of summer, but I'm just glad that I can go out. I love this time because I get up early in the morning when it's
Yeah,
cool. You go out there, it feels so good. I'm just
it
happy. It's my
does.
favorite time of the year, I think.
Yeah,
Easter.
this in the fall too for me. I love the I just like where it's not too cold or too hot, right? And you get that really good feel in the mornings and stuff. I agree.
Feels so good.
Yeah. Well, Ron, we're gonna tackle something here, but I'm gonna just say this to the group, everybody listening. Have you ever felt like you could read people? Have you ever run across somebody who just rubbed you the wrong way and you're not really sure why? I think we've all experienced that. And how about a baby's expression? So I have a new grandbaby coming very soon here, but I'm surprised because I have one that's only 3 months old also. And I look at the face and you do certain things and they smile and they smirk. They have kind of weird facial expressions. And I've always thought every time, where's that coming from? I mean, they clearly are too young to know things, but you can tell by that facial expression what's going on. So this is some of the stuff we're going to talk about today. I think for most people, they get into a situation and they're around people and they get an impression on, how they feel about somebody or a group of people. But we don't really know where that's coming from unless we take a minute and really think about it. So Ron and I, we watched a show called Body Language Decoded, a show from 2017. You can get it on Amazon Prime. It's only 52 minutes long, and it's directed and written by Jeff Ian. Not sure who he is, but that's who he is. Yeah, so here we go. We're going to jump into this. And, I thought about this a little bit over the years when I've been around people. Why am I picking up a vibe or something like that? Have you ever thought about that as you interacted with people at work or church or anywhere else, and you thought, why did I have that feeling talking or spending some time around them? Did you ever go through that?
Absolutely. Many times. And I can tell by other people's reactions that they're thinking the same thing about me, like wondering,
Right.
I'm sure you've experienced that where you can tell that people's trying to read you or,
Yeah.
get a feel for you or they just, why don't they want, they don't like me and they don't even know me,
Right.
and you talk about knowing how to read people. I've never been able to read women.
They're tougher, no doubt about it.
Well, I've always either misread them, got the wrong impression, and I've had some very embarrassing moments in my life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I know people out there are going to say, I'm not alone in this. I know there's no way I'm alone in this.
Oh, no, no.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing, right? Because in a lot of ways, women, this is a generalization, so it's not true all the
Of
way
course.
across the board, but they approach just reality, the world, maybe a little different than we do. We think about things slightly different in many cases. And so we try to impose what we think on them, and we're off. We're not right
Have you,
some of the times.
have you ever like thought you were, like hitting it off with a girl, and then you bust out some stupid guy humor,
right?
and you just lose them. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I was
Well,
young, but yeah.
I've had it the other way too, right? Like when I was younger, I remember one time I just thought I was clicking with this person very well. And, she was very friendly. I was friendly. We laughed. And one of her friends came up to me and said, "You don't feel that energy?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "She is into you." And I'm like, "What?" That's happened to me that way too. So
Wow.
you never know. So
It's hard to read people.
it is. Well, and I don't know if other people have this, but I do not like to talk in public, like large groups. And people say, "Oh, are you afraid of it?" And I go, "Well, not really that. Because when I communicate with people, I rely a lot on the nonverbals. And when I stand in front of a large group of people, I see it all. And it's so distracting. I see all those, I just see it all. And it makes it very tough for me to focus on what's in my mind. Do you have anything like that? Or just curious?
It seems like it's different every time. There
Yeah.
has been times where I'm very comfortable being the class clown, or being the guy in the
Mm,
break room I used to be the guy in the break room that made everybody laugh because I used to imitate everybody.
nice.
Back when you could get away with doing that, and
Yeah.
they'd be like, "Oh, I do so and so, I do it so, and he got you, and that was me. I was just good at mimicking people's mannerisms.
Yeah.
Then there's times where like I'm very uncomfortable. I guess it's just the room. Whatever, you got to read the room, and you
Right.
got to know the room. And sometimes you don't know the room, and you'd be a fool to get up there and treat that room the same as I would that break room. You'd make a fool out of yourself.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. No, I'm with you. And I definitely am way more comfortable with small groups, one, two, three people. I feel it better that way. But I think this kind of leads us into a lot of the discussion here as we think about this film and have this discussion. First of all, this Body Language Decoded, there were three main people presenting in this film. A guy named Joe Navarro, 25-year FBI agent, who they named him, his coworkers, the spy catcher, because he could read people. There's a lady named Lillian Glass, who's a body language and communication expert. For many years, has written 18 books. And there's a guy, Professor Matsumoto, who was a black belt in judo. That was pretty cool to see him flip some people and
uh,
do things like that.
yeah.
So he's not only a martial arts expert, he's also he's a professor, very heady and thinking about things not just physically, but in every other way as well. So I felt like the film jumped between those three individuals pretty well,
Mhm.
and each contributed in a different way from a different perspective, which I thought helped bring the film together. Did you feel that way for these three?
Yeah, they all brought something a little different. Uh, the first guy I think you're talking about, I think it's the first guy, or was it the guy who was like almost like a profiler?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. My wife was a big fan of. I think it was John Doug. Was it John Douglas? Who's the profiler?
Oh, right, right. Yeah.
Yeah, she's read a few of his books and she's talked to me about that. And I would like to know. I would like to be able to do that, but I wouldn't want to
Yeah.
but I wouldn't want to. He was very disturbed and went into deep depression because of all the things he heard having to interview these serial killers.
Mm.
I wouldn't want to do that. But yeah, they all brought something different to the table, and I thought he was the most interesting because that's a very interesting field for me to be able to
Yeah.
spot a dangerous individual.
Right. And that's a good point that you make right there. And in the film, it does actually talk about in prehistoric or old times or historically that humans likely had to rely on that impression and that feedback that they got to just find out if somebody was dangerous or had some weird motive.
Mm,
So you're right. I mean, that's one of the things they brought up. But, in the film, one of them, and I think it was Joe, said that the body is constantly communicating and that actions speak louder than words. I would agree with that. I mean,
mm,
have you ever been around somebody that says something but really does something completely different? It doesn't work very well.
mm,
We can see right through that. And so, even in subtle ways, it sounds like we still can pick up that difference, you know.
Yeah.
He said the body doesn't lie unless you are an exceptional actor.
Mm-hmm.
Actor, I thought that was an interesting thing to call somebody. Not a liar, an actor.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I think you have to be self-aware. You know, I mean, you have to be very self-aware, and to have a level of deceptiveness to where to try to control these body motions. You know, all the natural
Right.
mannerisms of the face and the body tics and the gestures. To be able to control all that, it takes a very talented individual.
I agree. And, you know, we go back to that point that I made a little bit earlier today about the baby being able to make certain expressions and facial movements. And it just seems like it's pretty automatic, right? If a baby can do it, we are doing something here and there really automatically. And to be able to reprogram that or to control that, you're right. It's got to be tough for somebody to really be able to control all of that.
Well, like for a child, you know, it's natural to cry when you get upset or you're hurt, you know, and then I don't know, you know, we kind of came from the same era. What are you crying? I'll give you something to cry about.
Yeah.
You cry, you know, so you learn, and so you try to hold it in,
Right.
and to hide your upset because then it upsets your parents, and so I think this era, maybe I don't know if they have that issue now, but so we, in a way, we kind of train ourselves as we grow up, what works and what doesn't work, uh,
Yes.
and to protect ourselves. You,
Right.
you getting
Right.
bullied. You getting bullied at school. You don't want does the bully see you cry? You know, you're trying to make it to where he will maybe shift off to somebody else, you know,
Right.
and leave you alone.
Yes. Defense mechanisms or just ways to get what you want. I've had this. I've had people I've known before that are very, what's the word I'm looking for? Overly emotional about stuff,
Yeah.
but they get a response from the people around them. It's almost like something that they've just, maybe they don't even know it anymore, but it has worked for them, so they use it, and so it's pretty interesting.
When I was a teenager, I've told you I got in a little trouble when I was a teenager, right? And I was locked up. I was incarcerated for a little bit.
That you didn't tell me, no.
Oh, yeah, in my teenage years, in my 15, you know, I won't divulge how long I was, but I got to spend some time with some individuals, some interesting individuals behind bars.
Mm,
The level, you can tell the guys that have never been there before, that maybe been there for a little while, and the guys who have been there and been there and been there over and over. The level of the ability to manipulate, to use intimidation, many different methods, smooth talkers, all the different ways of getting anything and whatever they want to get out of you. There's so many different ways, and you become keen to them pretty quickly. You have to.
yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah,
everybody at all times seems to be trying to manipulate you. They're master manipulators. So
right.
yeah, I've been surrounded by that before. Uh,
It's crazy. It
mhm,
is.
yeah.
People will, yeah, I think they just find what works for them. And we see that in children and babies, right? I mean, just I keep going back there, but they're at the most simplest form of knowledge and about the world. And yet, when a baby cries and then you stand up and the baby stops crying,
Mhm.
where did they get that from? They found out that it works, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So let's see here. The perception. Humans historically in pastimes, evolution, whatever you want to use, it's helped communicate the basic needs and motives of others by watching and seeing what other people do. I think in the film they brought up this example where that if somebody in the past would eat something and had a really kind of a look on their face, we would learn from that and say, well, I'm not going to eat that. I don't think I want to eat that. And it's true. Like how many times have you had gone out with friends or something and you go grab something to eat and they try something, you want some, and you looked at them and their reaction and you go, no, I think I'm good.
Too eager to get you to try.
Right? Yeah. So it's a gut instinct is what people I think feel. Hey, I'm really perceptive here. I really get people. It's this gut feeling. I think sometimes people think they have, but in the film they kind of dive in and say maybe, but it's probably from these things that you have that intuition about people that you're around. So they broke this up in a couple different ways, and they started off with talking about the face, and how there were like 43 muscles and thousands of expressions, and how your face moves and everything like that. Sometimes subtle, but we get messages from that. I thought that was cool the way they started numbering parts of the face, like when your eyebrows did this or the side of your mouth did that. And so that was neat for people who want to see that in the film to just kind of go, oh yeah, when I do see that, I do kind of feel, that they're upset or whatever it is. What did you think about that? Do you use, or have you seen people use the feedback from facial expressions to really decide how to approach people?
Well, I think anybody that's married is going to know the answer to that question. Right? What's wrong? And I do it to her too. You all right? Yeah, some
Right.
bothering you. You can tell by what when you know somebody, especially if you know them, you can tell right away that if something's not right, or if you're upset them. Then you got to find out what it is, obviously. And
Yeah.
sometimes it takes a little work to get there, especially if it's your fault. But it's like, no, you can. People, there's some people out there that wear their emotions on their sleeve. I mean, right? I mean, it's right on their face for the whole world to see.
Right.
Uh, yeah, you can tell somebody's angry right away. A lot. I mean, the furrowed brow, the way they're walking and everything. Just a shoulder. Everything about them seems to tense up a little, and their energy. You can tell. Yeah, somebody's happy. The little ticks, though, I do those too. Like if I bite my lip, it's I don't know. I can't stop from doing it. I do that a lot. So if I get interviewed by a cop for something, I get accused of murder. What's wrong? No, I've always done this. Come on, leave me alone. You make me self-conscious over here. I'm gonna start falling apart on you. Yeah,
Right.
of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, usually there's some tells. Everybody has tells, and they're usually the
Yeah.
same for most people.
Yeah. And on the film, they use the acronym FACS, FACS. I don't know if you remember that. It
Hmm.
stood for Facial Action Coding System, FACS. And if I remember correctly, it was Joe Navarro, the FBI guy, who kind of introduced this and started talking about this a little bit. But yeah, this also went into the part where they started marking the face and doing things like that to say, we can see definite changes in somebody's face in these areas when this emotion is going on. And I think, as I watched that, I thought to myself, yeah, I can see it. And I can pick that up when I'm around people, but I hadn't thought about it's that little turn of their lip or something like that that would communicate that to me because it's just kind of automatic.
Hmm.
So I thought that was interesting about the film. They kind of brought that to light, at least for me.
Yes, and that guy, the what was his job? I can't remember. The guy. He wasn't a profiler, but he was
He worked for the FBI,
he was
but I think he trained as well people and stuff. Yeah.
I wouldn't want to have that level of skill about it because, like, he mentioned, it if it's not good for could you imagine being married to that guy or being that guy's kids or spread. I
Ron, I
would.
think he said that at one point in the film too. Didn't he say his kids or something are like intimidated or like, oh no, dad's doing this again? Didn't he say something like that?
Yeah,
Can't
yeah. He,
remember.
he said it was made it harder on the family, and he doesn't.
That's right.
And it also bothered him that because you can't help but do it when you know these things. And if I knew what every single tick in a person's face meant, or even their body language, that's it can be like help you avert a dangerous situation or prepare for a dangerous situation, but it can also get the people around you to be self-conscious of how they act around you because they're afraid that you're going to be analyzing them and
Right.
reading something into every expression.
Kind of reminds me of something years ago I watched. I don't remember where the person could read other people's minds. And very shortly he was like, oh, I hate this. like to know what people are really thinking. You know, you can't give people the benefit of the doubt anymore. So kind of like what you're saying, if you're able to pick up these things so systematically and clearly, you might be overjudging really everybody.
And I think you could still be wrong.
Right. Right. Yeah, I knew somebody who, and this goes to what you're saying because people are different, where there was a facial expression that for me, the first 20 years of my life communicated something. And every time I was around anybody, it was pretty much that's what it communicated. And I ran across somebody who had that facial expression and it did not it didn't communicate what I thought was being communicated. Because I talked to them about it. I said, what's going on? And got into a conversation. They're like, what? That's not at all what's going on, you know? And proof past that point it was that they really, once I understood what they were thinking in that moment, I could see how it matched other things that they did. Yeah. Misinterpretation. It can happen.
And another thing, going back to behind, doing time, you have that jailhouse, you've heard of it, I'm sure. You ever seen somebody that you are aware of that just got out of doing some hard time? They have that stone kind of look to their face, right? That's a mechanism to use. You want to be almost like non-emotional, cut off. You want people to see nothing when they look at you, and so it's something that you end up just becoming. You get so conditioned to using it as a defense mechanism to keep people, because they're always looking for it. They're always studying you and looking for weakness in you at all times. And you have to have that tough, hardcore exterior, and it's all a facade. I guess if somebody spent 20 years doing hard time, it becomes who they over time because you've done it for so long. But it was a facade because everybody in there, I think, is probably scared to a degree. Probably terrified in many cases. I wouldn't say terrified, but I was very scared, at first.
Yeah.
And once you've been in there a little while, you start to adapting, but you have to put on that facade immediately.
What you're saying right now is very interesting because, as I'm kind of scrolling through memories in my mind, I knew somebody one time who tried to portray themselves very stoic, right? Mm-hmm. After coming out of a situation like that. But they were very emotional. They were a very emotional person. And I couldn't understand, wait, are you hard and stoic and, basically emotionless? Or are you, highly emotional? Which one is it? I was kind of thrown off, but it makes a lot of sense based on what you're saying, which is one's a defense mechanism, so you can't show who you are, so you don't get taken advantage of.
Well, yeah. Because in there, all it takes is once.
Right.
You can lose all your reputation, 20 years of building a reputation in a place like that in an instant.
Right.
And it's all over. And then it's all over for you. Yeah.
Well, there you go, people. Some insight, all right? That's good. That's good.
Don't go to jail.
But don't go to prison.
I was just a kid.
Yeah. Well, in the film, they also talk about 7 universally recognized expressions: joy, surprise, contempt, sadness, anger, disgust, and fear. And I would say, yeah, you can. They're very strong facial expressions when you see those, because it's pretty clear when somebody has those. You don't, and they're not ones that get mixed up with something else. You don't see somebody that looks happy but is really mad, right?
Yeah. Unless they're complete lunatics.
Unless they're lunatics, that's right. Yeah. One of the things that they brought up in the film too that I thought was really neat was how blind athletes, I think it was Matsumoto, went and he was taking pictures at a judo competition of different athletes and their facial expressions. And then he also did that at a Olympic kind of competition where some of the competitors were blind and still were competing. And they still showed the same facial expressions of happiness, joy, sadness, and everything. And he was saying these people have never seen a face like this. Like they're not mimicking something that they remember. They've never been able to see their whole life, which once again goes back to a child or a baby. How do they know to do this? It's pretty instinctual. It seems like those muscles, those connections really tie in with an emotion that people have. I thought that was pretty interesting.
It's amazing.
Yeah. You know, they mention also micro expressions. Do you remember that?
Yes, just a tiny little twitches. Yeah,
Yeah. Twitches, quick, fleeting facial expressions. And people are probably going to see this more often now. Now that they're thinking about this, they're going to see those short little,
what
you
was
know,
that?
things that people do and then go, what was that? Right. I thought it was interesting in the film that they said that things eventually leak out. So even somebody who's trying to be dishonest or is just trying to hide something, that in most cases to a trained observer that they can see the leaks coming out from there.
I think because they're trained to look for them. They're
Right.
looking when they got a suspect and they're grilling them, about a murder, and they're just looking for any. They're looking for every sign. They probably have a long list in here. Check, 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 check. Just looking for a little chink in their armor. Uh,
Right. Yeah. Well, okay, so that's face. Now, they also talked about the body and kind of said face versus body, which is more reliable. Now, without getting into this for you personally, when you look at nonverbals, unless it's something overly, overt that you can really see it, or do you rely more on facial expressions or how people do things with their body?
it depends what they're doing with their body.
Yeah.
Right now, you can have somebody's back turned to you, and if they're violently moving around in a way that tells you that they've lost their mind or they're in a rage, it doesn't take much, there, or if they're in pain, or I mean, or you've seen somebody when they're crying, they're doing that.
Yeah.
So I think it helps to see the face. I mean, if you can get both, that's obvious, but sometimes the face doesn't always give away everything. So sometimes you do have to rely on what they're doing with their hands, or like cops. Cops are always, show me your hands. Let me see your hands. Let me see. Get your hands out of your pocket. They have to,
Right.
because your hands are what are going to kill it. What will kill them, right?
Yeah.
So I think body language. You can tell when somebody's hiding something. They'll usually cross their arms when they have a conversation or close themselves off. Either they're just checking out on you, or they are hiding something or don't want to, divulge. So the way they're leaning, the way they're walking, slouching, you name it. Body language is also a big indicator of what you're dealing with.
All right. Yeah. Gesturing, hand movements, they talked about that, kind of going along with what you said. People are on the phone and they're moving their hands around and stuff like that. So that's just kind of natural for people. And then I thought it was neat. They showed us the Australian soccer team doing the haka. And what the lady said, and what was her name again? Lillian. What Lillian said is that they're not really trying to necessarily intimidate the other team, but it's like a readiness for themselves. But it's powerful, like the chant, the hitting of their thighs and stuff. But it's kind of to get themselves ready. So I think her point was that these body movements serve many things, and you have to kind of look at what you're seeing and stuff. You were mentioning like the fidgeting or the weird movements, even if they're turned around in the other direction, if they're upset, tells you something. And she did bring that up as well. Then there was a segment of the film where they took you out to an airport. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
And there was a lady, don't remember her name, but she was like a security director, and she was going around and just kind of showing you different places in the airport that they're looking for all the time for anything that's just out of place, that's not natural. And yeah, I mean, I'm glad they're doing that at the airport, don't you think?
It's nice to know that they're all doing it and not just a few select few.
Yeah.
They train every single one of their employees to look for these things. That's comforting.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, and that's the thing. I've seen people get frustrated at an airport, and it's very easy to do if they're running late or something.
Mm.
But these folks are just kind of doing their job, and they're trying to do it the best they can. And so hopefully we just give them a little bit of space to try to pick up on these things that I think are very hard to see. So,
I just think that there's if somebody's going to give them a hard time because they're stressed out because they're trying to catch a flight, those are the same people that are going to yell at the waitress, that are going to they're going to go into an establishment and just you've seen the videos. They
yeah.
make fools of themselves. I mean, there's no self control. So I think there's always going to be those people, and they have to put up,
Yes.
and they have to put up with them just like the rest of us. Yeah.
You know, people out there don't do that.
No, come on.
Right?
Yeah, come
It's a
on.
bad look. It's a bad look.
It's a
Yeah.
horrible look.
Well, feet are more accurate than the face. That Joe guy said that, and he actually gave some examples. He says when somebody is standing in front of them, like he'll look and see where their feet are facing. If their feet are facing away, that they want to leave, right? They're trying to get out of that interaction with that person. And I'm not going to lie, I'm going to start looking for that because I never even noticed that or thought about that. And he was saying that, what's going on down there with your legs and your feet are so far away from everything people normally focus on that he felt like that might be the best giveaway that he's ever, that you might see over the face. So I don't know. I see everybody now going to be looking at each other's feet. Where are you going?
You're 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I see you one point one the way, 1 foot. Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting when remember the girl and the guy on the dock, and she was
Yes.
just all over him, just trying to get. And this guy was so just checked out, and this girl was just in his face, hugging him, just look at me.
I
She
know.
was so into him, and finally she checked out. And then you saw his God body language kind of change when she checked out, right? Too late, man.
Right.
You blew it, brother. You
You
know,
did.
you did. You had her. You had her. She was, she. What more do you want? And that's something that we have to be aware of. That we don't want to give that signal to the person that we love. Even we might be busy doing something, and they might just trying to get our attention. And just, I know it's hard sometimes to just put the phone down or whatever it is you're doing, just for a second to give them that minute, give them that time that they're looking for.
Yes.
Because I've been guilty of it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to be hypocritical here. I get into things, and I wonder, and I don't want to make that person feel that way, and I am sorry when I have done that. But I think that video really showed me, that was an eye opener for me, that what signal am I sending to that other person?
Yes. No, it was a pretty powerful moment because when she was explaining what she was seeing, you know that's exactly what was going on. It's so true. And I think we all do this. So I'm with you. There are times I as well with my wife will be like, hey, are you really busy right now? Because you're not paying attention to me. That kind of a thing. And so sometimes you got to call each other out. Yeah.
Yeah.
But along with that, do you remember the other couple that they showed? It was actually a little bit earlier than the one that you brought up, where that there was a guy and his girlfriend on the pier as well, but very engaged with each other, looking in each other's eyes,
Mm,
just really kind of in love with each other. That was cool to see, and there's no question that they really had lots of feelings for each other.
yeah.
And yeah, so two completely different examples on that film, and I think it communicated things better than any words could. So
It was beautiful. Yeah, it's beautiful to see
yeah.
that.
So we're talking about pictures, and you remember the Prince Charles and Princess Diana
Yeah.
picture? Yeah, and I think a lot of people understood that their relationship was strained. It was a tough one, but you could see it in that picture. Like they were both like checked out.
Yeah. Especially on her face, right? I think it was more on her face.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't know if that's because all these years I've been told how poorly she was treated. So in my mind, uh, I'm seeing it more in her than Prince Charles, because Prince Charles never really wanted to. He didn't want to marry her from the beginning.
Right.
And I don't even know if she wanted to marry him. I think it was one of those royalty weddings that you don't really
Right.
have a choice. This has been determined, and you're just going to do this. Yeah, horrible. I would hate to be in a relationship like that.
I know. It's hard.
Yeah, sad.
Yep. But a lot of people will recognize this. They also spent a couple minutes on a couple presidents that we've had.
Mhm.
They had a picture of Donald Trump, a picture of Clinton, and that was interesting, right? A lot of people have a lot of feelings about probably both of those guys.
Mhm.
But the example they used was Clinton during the time where he was saying he had not slept with
Monica
Monica
Lewinsky.
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 Lewinsky,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and how they really kind of broke down because he was very convincing, but the person who was, and it was a professor of something, was talking about it, and he says, look at the way he pierces out to people, look at the way he kind of challenges people. And we all know that that was a lie at this point, right? But at that point, when it happened, yeah, he was doing a pretty good job protecting his interests there, for sure. And they contrasted that with Trump. Do you remember?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, I think Clinton was a seasoned, wasn't he an attorney? Wasn't he?
I
Was it?
think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, their trial attorney, I don't know if he was a trial attorney or not, but he was a politician for many years before he became president. They spend a lot of time in front of coaches and in front of mirrors, and people preparing them for these type of moments. And yeah, he was believable at the time.
He
Um,
was.
and then when you contrast him with Trump, I think it was funny what she had. A lot of people ain't gonna like how this turned out, about,
Yeah.
about who was telling the truth and who was lying in this person's opinion. Uh,
Right.
I'll let you talk about that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think really people should watch this part, especially on the film, because they do a good job really talking about this. And I think the whole point was like either of these guys or not,
Mhm.
one, like you were saying, is a seasoned person to portray, to project something, right? And then you got somebody like Trump who's just speaking off the cuff, just saying what he wants. Like it or not, it's honest, or at least honest from his heart. And so, yeah, and they really go into that with the pictures and some video there. So that was very interesting.
Yeah. Did you want to talk about what she said about Trump? You want to leave that to the people to watch for
Well,
themselves?
let's, unless you want to. I mean,
I don't care.
I don't care. Yeah, go ahead, bring it up.
Well, people in my family aren't going to be are going to be happy with the fact that this person that body language expert that was watching Trump was fully convinced that he believed everything he was saying. He was telling what he knew to be the truth, and
Yeah,
he was speaking from who he was. He wasn't trying to hide anything. He wasn't trying to do anything other than tell you what he was going to do, or his truth, or what. I don't remember what he was talking about when they were talking,
yeah,
but there was no deception.
right.
And
Well, it reminds me of something that was said about him a few years ago by somebody that worked in his cabinet. They were saying the difference between Trump and politicians is politicians, for the most part, are liars. And Trump is a bullcrapper. They didn't use those words. And there was a difference, and they explained that. One person is speaking, very flat, colorfully, very loud, very get my attention, but they're being honest with what they believe. Where the other is a trained person to kind of get a message out that may not always be true. And I remember when they said that, I thought to myself, and I started watching that, and I thought to myself, I can see what she was saying. You
mhm.
can really see that. So,
Well, politicians are all about messaging,
yeah,
right? It's all about how can I tell these people what they don't want to hear in a way that they'll want to hear it.
so true.
Yeah.
So true. Yeah, it was pretty good. And towards the end of the film, they actually spent some time talking about a lady named Penny Boudreaux who had a missing daughter, that case. Do you remember that?
Yes.
So that was interesting because they had students who were watching this video of Penny Boudreaux at a kind of a press conference type thing, pleading for somebody to help them bring her daughter back home who was missing. And people were kind of analyzing and determining, things about her face and what was going on. The professor was saying after the fact, you could see this in her forehead where it communicated something different than what she was saying. But in the end, she was responsible for the murder of her own daughter. And she was playing it off the other way in media, in press conferences.
Do you remember
That's pretty powerful.
Do you remember why she said she killed her daughter? Because why?
Yeah. Because her boyfriend wasn't ready to be a parent.
Get another boyfriend.
Crazy.
Get another boyfriend.
Wow. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, there's definitely more going on with that poor lady because you don't discard a child for something like that. But it was pretty powerful because I remember watching that, and you didn't know at the moment, the story because it's not one that I remember in history and media. But so in the beginning, I'm wondering, is she guilty or not? And then they go into all these different things, and you see that she's guilty. So it's crazy.
Well, the guy, I forget his name, he said he could tell because she had that deer in the headlights kind of look instead of the furrowed. She said when you're really scared, you kind of furrow, and she was,
Yeah.
and it's something that she couldn't, she was unable to use those muscles that required,
Right.
because it wasn't genuine. That's what he was saying, right?
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that, and it was clear too. I mean, what he said is exactly the way her forehead was. It was very interesting.
And she was shedding real tears. I mean, that would sway a lot of people. So people like him, with their keen eye for that particular thing, was able to give that information to the police, and then they zeroed on her, and boom, lo and behold, he was
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. It's crazy. Well, there you go, man. Let's go ahead and say what we think about the film. So this Body Language Decoded, not only an hour or under an hour. Did you enjoy it?
It was interesting.
Yeah.
It wasn't too much information, so I didn't feel like some of the things we've watched. It's just so much information, and I am not going to be able to possibly remember all this when we sit down and talk about it. This one didn't have that. It had like some good information, enough for you to, but not too much for you to not be able to absorb it.
You're right.
And so, like you said you watched it 3 days ago. I kind of dozed off and on with it, watching it a second time today a little bit, and I missed most of it, but we were still able to sit down and recall the things that were in there for the most part. So I enjoyed it. I thought it was. I would recommend it for people who are interested in these kind of things.
Yeah. Yeah. And I felt like they did a good job with the visuals and video and pictures to support whatever the point that they were making at the time, which I thought was pretty powerful because that's actually what I remember more. I remember the picture of this or this video that kind of supported what they were talking about. I thought they did a good job with that as well.
Can I have a disclaimer? Now, for those people who are looking to get into these kind of fields, you might want to watch some of these things and see the toll it takes on some of these people who have expertise in this field. It really does take a toll on you. So go in there. Go if you're going to do this. Go. I would recommend you go into with that in mind. So you're not going into it blindly with the idea of thinking that you're just going to be the greatest job on earth. These people have. It's hard. It's going to be hard to be around these people because you can't separate. You're going to be analyzing everybody. You have to be okay. So for those of you who want to do this for a career, consider that. I would think that you would want to consider that.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, because you're right. Some people out there might look at this and go, yeah, this is really interesting to me.
Yeah.
But what comes with it?
Look at the toll. You could see on the guy's face. He's been carrying. This is over the years. It's wore on him. Who wants to be analyzed by a psychologist and be married to a psychologist You
I
know,
know.
especially if that psychologist can't stop being a psychologist when it's you. You know, when he's not on the clock.
Yeah.
Just be able to separate.
Yeah. Good point to make for sure. Because I think a lot of times when we cover these topics like this and people that perform these types of things, yeah, it's going to be new for somebody out there. There'll be somebody who says, wow, I didn't even know there was, people doing this. I think I would like to. So I think that's great that you brought that up so that people can think kind of all around about what this might mean for their life. So, well, how would you rate the film? I mean, we normally go 1 to 5 on films, and it's a little bit different than some of the other things we've rated and looked at before. But in this genre, what do you think?
Well, I don't have anything else to really gauge it by, and we're not talking. But I can, like I did, like I said, we had experience. It reminded me of some of my what I talked about earlier, my youthful. Uh, yeah, I would give it about man 3.5, 3.25 in that range, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's about where I am too. I figured 3, 5. Once again, just very different. It's not like you're going to go out and watch 20 movies about this kind of topic. But so for that, it probably bumped closer to 3.5 because I felt like it was worth seeing.
Hmm.
It helps you think about things that maybe some people out there do automatically but don't realize that this is what they're doing. There's a systematic approach maybe that's going on in their mind about how they read people. So I think in that case, pretty valuable, but not a 5, right?
Are you going to be able to resist the urge to go out in the public and not be looking at for these kind of things everywhere you go?
Oh, I'm going to be looking for feet all the time.
You're looking for feet. Okay, okay.
That's like the one thing that I hadn't even thought of that came up in this film. And I thought, I'm going to look at that.
Okay.
And every time I say to my wife, come here, and she's got her feet pointing the other way, I'll know.
You have some dishes to do or something?
Right.
You go to the store with your sister? Where you going?
Yeah. Well, there we go, everybody. It was fun chatting about this. And hey, we think it's worth seeing. So everybody out there, just remember, if you like these kinds of things, subscribe. Hit the like button. Give us some comments. We love anything that you might say. Maybe some of you out there have experience or have been reading somebody incorrectly. That would be pretty cool to know. And let the community of people kind of throw their thoughts in there and share some ideas. And let's learn from each other. So, other than that, Ron, it's been great. And I can't wait till we chat next time.
Yeah.
And for the rest of you out there, remember, there's a lot of strange and unexpected in our reality. So always keep your eyes, ears, and minds open. And until the next time, stay safe. See you, Ron.
See ya.
Thank you for listening to High Strangeness. This was a glance at some of the strange that exists in our reality.